everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today I'm so tickled, I'm so pleased, so enthused. I have with me Dr. Alan Lycka. He is a former, or he's still current, one of the leading cosmetic dermatologists, and he is the author, co-author of the book, The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life. And I foresee us having a wonderful, wonderful conversation today. I'm so ready to get into it. I don't have much time, so welcome to the show. Thank you for hanging out with me today.
Lana, I have so much pleasure being here today. I can't tell you enough. Thank you for having me from the bottom of my heart.
Now tell the audience where I'm speaking to you from.
Well, I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Edmonton is the former home of Wayne Gretzky, the #1 hockey player in the world. And, so I come from a city that's well known in certain circles, but we're way up in the Great White North, and we're already starting to have cooler temperatures at this time of year. We're around 32 degrees Fahrenheit in the mornings now. We still go up to 50 or 60 during the days, and our days are very pleasant. But, you've sent some smoke our way, which we're not very
Yes.
pleased with.
We're sorry.
Can you please take it back?
We're so sorry. We're so sorry. We've spread that stuff all over the world today. Well, like I said, thank you for hanging out with me. I really want to jump in because you have some important information, some tidbits that can really get people on their way in their life that a lot of us struggle with. Now, I mentioned in the opening that you have this book, you've co-authored this book, The Secrets to a Fantastic Life. Now, if I'm understanding correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, part of the story or part of the reason this book came to be was because of your personal journey and a misdiagnosis with ALS. Is that true?
Yes, my journey started not too far from you. I was walking in Disneyland with my wife and my youngest daughter. 2003 was the year. It was springtime. It was February. It was already gotten hot. We were already up around 90, 95 at that time. And it was the end of a hot, sticky day. And my wife turned to me and said, "What's wrong with you, hon?" And for once in my wife, Lana, I hadn't said anything wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't even thunk anything wrong. So I was sort of taken aback by that. I said, "What do you mean, dear?" She said, "Listen to your foot." I said, "What do you mean, dear? That's a pretty funny thing to say." Well, she said, "Listen to it." And my foot had suddenly and mysteriously developed a right foot drop. Your brain is programmed for your foot to lift up with every step you take.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my foot wasn't. It was slapping on the pavement with each step I was taking. And so my wife was concerned. And I said, "I don't know what's wrong." And she said, "Well, did you have a stroke?" And I said, "Dear, that's not how strokes present. You're a doctor. I'm a doctor. That's not what it is." She said, "Well, when we get back, you better get it checked out." Well, Lana, when you say that to your loved one, what does he do?
Well, it's a catch-22 because men don't like to go to the doctor, even though you're in the medical field.
You got it. You got it. But when my wife said that, and it was out of concern and love, I decided to listen to the
Okay.
rules. And so instead of doing what I usually do, which was ignore it, I did. And so I got CAT scans. I got brain scans. I got PET scans.
Oh,
I
wow.
got scans. And the doctors at that time, you know what they found? Do you know what they found, Lana?
Hmm.
Absolutely nothing. And you know what doctors do when they find absolutely nothing?
They
They
make
do
up
more.
something.
Well, they sometimes do. The good doctors do more tests
Oh,
and
okay.
more tests and more tests because doctors do not like to be left with nothing. They
Hmm.
like to have an answer. And they keep doing tests until they find an answer. And so at the end of that, I ended up on the doorstep of a world leading neurologist. Neurologists are the brain guys. They're the guys that have all the pieces. They've gone to school to learn the brain and how it functions. And so I walked in and I said, "Hi." And he said, "Hi, you better be sitting down when I tell you this." And I said, "Why? I've got a dropped right foot." He said, "No, you don't. There's only one thing that explains your diagnosis. It's ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. You better get your affairs in order. In 6 months, you're going to be dead." Well, Lana, I'm a doctor. I'm a man. Do you think I take that easily?
No,
I
no.
said, "Can you prove this diagnosis?" And he said, Of course, on autopsy. Well, I shot back, Lana. I'm not going to die to prove you wrong.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wow.
So, as a doctor, I went through some very human emotions at that time. We talked a little bit about when people lose something, they go through a grief reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the grief reaction was written by a lady by the name of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and it's written in a book called Death and Dying.
Mm-hmm.
And that in that book, she says people go through stages
Mm-hmm.
when they're dying, and one of them is anger.
Mm-hmm.
You get very angry. You get angry like you can bite the head off nails. And I was angry. But you also go through a phase of denial. You know, I can do everything. There's nothing wrong with me. I can really do anything I want. And so I went through denial and I worked 12, 14, 16 hours a day. If I was going to die, I was going to have something to show at the end of it.
Mm.
But in my heart of hearts, I knew there was something wrong. And during this phase, my right arm began not working the way it should. I couldn't do all the fine things I could with it. But most of my weakness was in my shoulder, not in my hand. And only later did my hand start to get infected. But it came on so slowly, I was able to become left handed. And
Mm-hmm.
so I became a left handed doctor. And that's good and bad because um, there aren't instruments made for doing surgery with your left hand. So I had to invent them myself. So many surgeons believe left handed surgeons are evil because there aren't the tools to do things. And so I had to develop a lot, and I did a lot. And then there's another phase doctors go through, and that's bargaining. And the bargaining goes like this: oh God, please don't let this happen. I
Yes.
will do
Yes.
anything if it doesn't happen.
Yes.
And another phase you go through, and I don't even think these are phases, these are little mini sets your brain goes through, and your brain flits through this. And the last one is depression, where you can't even get out of bed at the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
the day because it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to die anyhow. So you
Yes.
stare at the ceiling, everything is black, everything is gloomy, everything's doing it. And in a microcosm, I think 2020 people are going through those phases right now.
Mm.
They're going through anger, very angry people everywhere. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's like
Yes.
road rage to the 10,000s right now.
Indeed.
There's bargaining going on. Oh, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. There's a depression going on. How do I know that? I turn on the news and there's only gloom and
Yes.
doom all
Yes.
the time. The world's ending tomorrow. It's not going to, it's like every day there's more bad news and more bad news and more depression and more
Indeed.
crap going on. So my answer to that is turn off the news because it's not helping anybody. But
Yes.
at the end of this, I went to my wife and I said, "Dear, what do I have?" And she said, "I don't know, but you're smart. You can figure it out." Oh, well, thank you, dear. Thank you for the vote of confidence. It's wonderful. Thank you. So, back in 2003, something new was invented, and you might have heard about it. Something called the internet. Do you ever hear of that?
I think I've somewhere in the
Uh,
back I've heard of it.
you might have, but back then it was primitive. Bill
Yes.
Gates wasn't doing all the things he was doing and all this stuff.
Yes.
We didn't have search engines. We didn't have we had dial-on connections, and
Yes.
so your phone had to go into a cradle and talk to another phone, and it used to go ria
Yeah, yeah,
ria
yes.
ria.
I remember those days.
Oh my God! And when you got through, you had to go to individual sites, and I thank God I was a doctor and I had friends that were nerds.
Hmm.
And they found a doctor in Colorado Springs, Colorado by the name of David Martz. And he had a story very similar to mine, except he got worse much more rapidly than I did. And David was on his deathbed, and doctors from around the world were coming to say goodbye to David because he was loved by everybody. Everybody knew this man. He was a hematologist, a blood specialist, and people loved him. And they came to say goodbye to him. And a doctor from Texas came up. Dr. William Harvey came to him and said, "David, I think there's something wrong with your picture." And David whispered, because that's all he could do at that time, "What do I have?" Williams said, "I think you've been bitten by a tick. I think you have something called chronic Lyme's disease.
Wow.
And he said, if I'm right, I can make you better." And, you know, that's where uh, he started him on a treatment. And like Lazarus, David rose from the dead.
Wow.
And you know, David was a very special man, and he started treating people with this weird disease. He had over 2,000 people. He started the chronic Rocky Mountain Disease Clinic in Colorado Springs. So I knew I had to get in touch with him. I knew that this man had answers to the puzzle that I did not have. So I phoned every hospital in Colorado Springs. You know, a doctor can get in touch with any other doctor if he wants to. And so I wanted to. So I got in touch, and the operator put me through to him there. And we talked, and he said, Dr. Lycka, can you come down and see me? I said, when? He said, right now. Well, you know, it was October. That's our Thanksgiving, Lana.
Yes.
And I said, I can't, David. My wife's having 50 people over. And David said, don't you have any planes in Canada? Oh, David, I love you. David wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I go to my wife and I apologize. Dear, I'm not going to be home. She says, where are you going this time? I said, of course, I'm going to Colorado Springs. She said, why? I said, because there's a doctor there that might be able to help me. She said, well, then of course you must go. I'll
That's
take care of
right.
the 50 people. There's
That's
no
right.
problem with that. You know, I grew up in a big family. This is a nothing for me. And I said, well, dear, extend my apologies. I'm going down. And she said, I'll even pack your bag for you. Well, thank you, dear. So I got on a plane from Edmonton to Denver. It was a great plane, and it really did wonderful there. But then I got on a plane from Denver to Colorado Springs. Have you ever been on that plane, Lana?
Those little crop duster planes, right?
Oh God, it's a puddle jumper. We call them puddle jumpers up here, and it's not the plane that's the problem. It's what goes on at the end of the day. You see,
Uh-huh.
the air comes off the desert and it creates something called eddies, and those
Yes.
eddies cause turbulence. And so
Hmm.
that plane climbs and then it drops, and then
Yes.
it climbs and then it drops. So you've been to Disneyland and you've been on the drop of doom, I'm sure. Well,
Yes.
this was the drop of doom times 100. It kept climbing and climbing and dropping until I was green. I
Ah,
crawled off that plane, and there was David to meet me. He was there to really help me along the way. And he said, let's talk. And he said, you know, I think history is repeating itself, Dr. Lycka. And so he started me on treatment. And that's how I was able to be a top cosmetic doctor for over 30 years till I walked away last year to serve mankind more. You see, when you go through this, Lana, you decide in your life, how can you do things better? How can you
true.
do things differently? And you really look at giving back. You really look on how you can help
True.
people in ways that you've never done before. And that's where I discovered the Golden Pearls with my co-author, Harriet Tinka. And there's a whole story behind that. So you might want to get her on to discover all about how we
Awesome.
discovered the Golden Pearls.
Awesome.
But we have some amazing pearls. And you know how a pearl is formed, Lana?
Pressure and
Well, it starts because of trauma. You know, that oyster gets a little grain of sand
sand
inside
in
of
there.
it
Yes.
that irritates the oyster. And the oyster makes this beautiful golden pearl as a result. And golden pearls actually exist in nature, but they're so rare
Rare.
that a single solitary exquisite pearl costs upwards of $10,000. So, but the thing is, Harriet and I found golden pearls in each and every one of us, where people actually have these beautiful things inside of them, and they can get them out without going through the trauma that we have done. And that's why we come on shows like yours, Lana, to really help people to understand some of these things so that they can heal, so that they can move forward, so that when they go through trauma like this COVID crisis that's
Yes.
going on, that they can move forward and really get out of this funk that they're in, so
Hmm.
that they can go to a level that they have never been before. And the bad side of COVID is it's here. The good side is it gives us a chance to rebirth ourselves. It
It's a
gives us
learning
an
opportunity.
opportunity to really make ourselves better than we've ever been.
Awesome. Now, before I go into the golden pearls, I want to ask you a question. It's kind of off topic, but related to the story that you just told us, because you are a doctor, you're in the medical field, and a lot of us laymen will look to the medical industry as the end all to be all. There's an expectation that everybody knows what they're doing when we step into your offices. What advice would you give
Well,
to?
doctors are wonderful people. Don't get me wrong; they are amazing people. And even that neurologist I saw was an amazing doctor. But a doctor can only go from what they know to what they know. And one of the faults of doctors is we like to pigeonhole people. We like to put square pegs in round holes because we have to deal with it.
Mhm.
And in medicine, we are always forced to make a diagnosis. We always have to make a diagnosis. And if it looks like a dog and barks like a dog, it's probably a dog. It may be a horse, it may be a chimpanzee, but it's probably a dog. So we're always trying to make a simple diagnosis. But when we truly do medicine the right way, when a person comes out with a bunch of things that don't fit, we do something called the differential diagnosis. So, right now people are coming in with a strange disease called COVID. And even though it's been with us for 6 months, we really don't understand it. We
Mhm.
really don't know all the things about it. We've only had it for 6 months.
Mhm.
So when a person comes out with a sniffle, it could be COVID, or it may be a cold, or it could be the flu, or it could be a host of other things. Now, fortunately, we have tests to tell us. Unfortunately, they don't come back rapidly all the time and don't give us an answer every day. But the answer is we're getting tests that will be rapid in the near future. So doctors love to go from what we know to what we know. And, you know, my answer to that is when a person goes into a doctor and they're not feeling well, they sit down with their doctor and talk to him. You know, that's something that often doesn't happen. They often send you for a brain scan or a CAT scan or a scan. Just say, doctor, there's something wrong with me. You're not hearing me.
Okay.
Let's chat a little bit. Try and most doctors that are worth their salt will talk. They
Okay.
will spend that time and come up with the right diagnosis. But remember, all they can do is go from what they know to what they know. So sometimes a second opinion is necessary. Sometimes a third opinion is necessary. Sometimes consulting Dr. Google's necessary. Sometime just reaching outside and asking the questions are necessary. Now, if you can't do that yourself, I suggest you go with your loved one because your
Okay.
loved one might have a little bit more knowledge. Or if you have somebody that's a medical person in your life, like a nurse or a doctor,
Yes.
that go with them. Say,
Okay.
there's something because when I didn't know what I had here, I had to find it. I really had to go and grasp at it, and I knew there was an answer. And actually, a part of the reason I'm doing so well is I went to a doctor in Los Angeles, at your one of your clinics there. I even forget the name of it, but he was a neurologist and he
Okay.
was able to do some specific tests that was able to say it was chronic Lyme's disease and able to help me in ways that I could not believe. And
Awesome.
he put me on a treatment called IVIG that helped me more than anything else through all those times as well. So it's not only one doctor that helps you, it's often a plethora of doctors. Because again, have you ever heard the story of looking at an elephant and one doctor looks at the elephant and he looks at the trunk and said, this elephant has this big trunk. And another one looks at this leg and said, this leg, and all they're doing is looking at
It's all,
pieces of
but
the
yes.
elephant and they're trying to define the elephant,
Hmm.
and that's the problem we're dealing with medicine often. We're often looking at symptoms and trying to find a disease that fits it.
Yes.
People don't present as diseases, they present as symptoms. So it's a hard thing for doctors to come up with the answers. And even with all the training in the world that we have, it's often hard to find the right answers in all this thing. And part of it is we do not, no one had heard of chronic Lyme's disease back in the early
Yes.
2000s. Why? Because it didn't exist and it was a new disease. No one had heard of COVID until it existed because it was a new disease. So how do we figure things out when something's new? How do
New.
we figure things out in ways we don't know? The answer is doctors are always asking questions and we're always doing tests. So we do figure them out eventually, but it takes a long, long time.
That's why science is so relevant and it's always evolving. And,
Well, you
you
see,
know,
you can never do medicine. You can only practice medicine. And
yes.
part of practicing medicine is asking the right questions and having a good bedside manner.
I love it. I love it. So let me get back on topic here because I want to talk about your book. Now, the book you co-authored with another wonderful, beautiful lady. How did all of that piece together?
Well, when I started giving back, I started sponsoring things. And one of the events I had sponsored was a Women of Distinction Award to honor all the women of Edmonton. And I partnered with the YWCA of Edmonton, and they put out a call for wonderful women. And Harriet was nominated for an award called Turning Points Award. When she went through her trauma, she started giving back and helping youth in society to become empowered. So she started a group called Empowered Me. And so she applied for this award. And this lady was devious. Women are often devious, and she was devious. She wanted to have lunch with me. So after she won the award, she bought me lunch, and she never lets me forget it, even to this day. And at lunch, she said, Dr. Lycka, she explained her story, and I explained mine. She said, this is a great opportunity to write a book. And we started writing that book over 6 years ago. And it was something that we started, and we're not authors. Harriet's an accountant and I'm a doctor. So we're
Mhm.
not authors. So we went to just outside of your city again in Santa Barbara, California. We went to meet with Jack Canfield. Do you know
Mhm.
Jack Canfield?
I've
He's the
heard-
guy that wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. And
mhm.
he's only sold 200 million books.
Only two.
So only to it. So when we wanted to do a book, we wanted to go to the best. We wanted to learn the best. And Jack gave us advice and helped us. And he actually wrote the foreword for our book
Awesome.
as well. So he helped us to put this book together. Now, so we started writing it. And Jack's book is a very interesting book. It starts with a story for each chapter in it. And he said to us, he said, you must put a story at the beginning of it. So part of the 6 years was finding the right stories to put to the
Hmm.
chapters. And each of the golden pearls has a story to begin. And then we said, Harriet, we're having problems writing this book. So Harriet said, well, why don't we not write it? Let's speak it. Let's record it every time we meet. And so we recorded it. And our book is largely about the dialogue that we had when we were writing it. So the people that read this book actually are like a fly on the wall. They're invited to a
Okay.
friendly coffee conversation between two people. So we're not preaching to people in this book. We're helping them discover these golden pearls. It's a voyage of discovery that they're going on. And they're really finding little parables, little stories, little anecdotes as things go on. And then we sprinkle this book with over 150 quotes from some of the world's greatest authorities so that
Awesome.
people can find a deeper meaning in all this as well. And I call them mini golden pearls. And I'm going to give some golden pearls of this to your audience as well.
Great.
And all they have to do is text me the word golden pearls. And all they have to do is send it to us at 1-819-717-2515. That's 1-819-717-2515. That's the word golden pearls.
Pearls.
And everybody will get a golden pearl every Tuesday so that their life can have greater meaning. And this week, the golden pearl was forgiveness. And
Everybody's.
that came from Martin Luther King. And he said, darkness cannot drive out the darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
Yes.
What a golden pearl. And
Indeed.
everybody who texts us today will also be put in a draw for the Golden Pearl book. And we will
Awesome.
send that to them so that everybody has that opportunity. But again, it's for today only. So text us today and you will get a Golden Pearl book, our beautiful book, The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life, with 14 golden pearls to help you in your regular day. And if anybody wants me as a keynote speaker, I'm a delightful keynote speaker, so is
Yeah.
Harriet. I know not many keynotes are being done, but I can do that on the internet. So if you have a small group of women or men that would love that to get, please invite me. I will do that via Skype or via one of these evil internet things that we
These
have
web
at our
conference, video conference things that we
that
have,
we're
right?
zooming every day, and I'd love to do that. You just go to my site, Dr. Alan Lycka. That's Dralen, Lycka, just like it sounds, Lycka.com. And you'll find some wonderful stuff there. And my girl, Vera, who's the eighth wonder of the world, will take care of things, get this all together and help you with that. And I'd
Awesome.
love to help you, even in Los Angeles, even in New York,
Mm.
anywhere that your audience might be, Lana, because everybody needs some help right now.
Oh,
Everybody
yes.
needs some spunk right now. Everybody needs to come out of this time and be better for it. Now,
Yes.
don't be shy. Hey, write me, call me. I'll help you. And I'll even give 15 free minutes to anybody that needs help with me right
Awesome.
now.
Awesome.
And just to strategize and help you come out of your funk. So if you're unemployed right now because of this darn COVID, oh
Yes.
my God. And if you need to get over some anger issues you're having right now, give me a call. Because I remember Mahatma Gandhi once was involved in race riots in way back when Pakistan was becoming a country
Hmm.
and India was becoming a country. And a Hindu came to Mahatma Gandhi and he had killed a Pakistani and he was mortified. And he went to Mahatma and said, "Blessed Mahatma, what do I do?" And Mahatma said, "You can only do one thing." And he said, "What?" He said, "You must take that Pakistani's child and raise them as a Pakistani. That only that way you will be able to get free and let your karma go away,
Mm.
because you will then learn the shoes that that man went through, and you will learn a new way of doing things." And I think, in all this, that's what we must do. Lana,
But
you're black and I'm white, and I'm Canadian, you're American, and I think one of the things that differentiates us is that we look at things a bit differently. And one way is Canadians don't look at blacks, we don't look at whites, we don't look at people that are green and look at them differently. We believe that everybody's a person in their own right and must do everything. And maybe I can help people that way. Maybe I can help put new glasses on people and see the world differently. Maybe I can help them in ways that they've never seen or things like that. And that's part of my mission now, is to
mhm.
serve people in ways that I have not done.
Yes, indeed. Well, you Canadians are not being too nice to us Americans right now. You've blocked us from access to your borders. So
Well, that the problem is you have this darn thing down there that we don't want any of, and that's that little virus that is so prevalent down there that we just don't want any of it. So when you get that solved, when you get that in controllable levels, we will be glad to lower our border and share again. But
never in,
until
never
until
in
we
my
until we get that little problem solved, we just can't have our sharing going on, because we know that it's going to share in ways that are not. And unfortunately, we're going through our own pandemic again. We're in our second wave now.
surge. Okay,
We're
all right.
going in a surge right now that is not. So we have to contain our own problems before we can move forward again. And our prime minister was on the television yesterday, talking about the surge that's going on and how we have to control it and how
Hmm.
it's not friendly anymore. And you know, as Canadians, we don't understand this virus any better than you guys do. We
Hmm.
don't we don't understand any better. And we are trying to grapple with it as well. So yes, we have mandatory masks, okay?
Yes.
But masks unfortunately protect you, not me.
Yes.
So we wash our hands, we do all these things. And yes, we are a little bit more socially aware, and we do things in ways that we're not as individualistic. So we try to follow these things. But we have a group of people that are young people that don't believe that this is going to affect them. They just don't believe this. And I was young too. And I believed
Invincible. I
I
am
was
invincible.
invincible. There's no way this damn little virus is going to affect me. But I think in your heart of hearts you have to look back and say, is that really true? And maybe
Hmm.
we don't know what we don't know. Like
That's
I
true.
said, we
That's
don't know what we don't know. So maybe this is a time where we have to understand we don't know what we don't know. And um, I Americans have always been like the big brother and sister of Canadians. And when you had 9/11,
true.
I don't know if most Americans know it, but when you shut your airspace, we brought all your airplanes into Canada. And We have a little airport in Gander, Newfoundland,
Mm-hmm.
as that was part of the Second World War. We developed a big airport there because of the incursion that was going on there. So over 100 planes landed in this little town,
Yes.
Gander, Newfoundland. And you should look that up sometimes because that little town is so small. There's probably about 200 people.
Yeah.
So all these people that came on their planes went to people's houses, and they actually were treated like members of their family.
Family.
And,
Yes.
so Canadians gave you a big gift at that time, and that just shows how loving, how kind we are when we do things. And we realized, what were you going to do with all these damn planes that were coming your way
Let me
from
help you out a little bit,
from
right?
Europe, etc.? Where are you going to put all these people? We just said, okay, well, we've got 24 hours to put all these. And I had friends that were air traffic controllers at that time, and it
Okay.
was one of the most. We had hundreds of planes in Edmonton. We had hundreds of planes in Calgary. We had hundreds of planes all
Mm,
over the place, and everybody landed. Everybody was treated well. Everybody received some Canadian hospitality.
awesome. Awesome. Now you've talked to a couple of times, we've mentioned a couple of times COVID-19, the new normal, what it is bringing out or showing us about human nature. We talked about masks, but it seems like COVID-19 is bringing out frustration, is bringing out anger, it's bringing out a
Well,
lack of common sense. Like
it's bringing out the grief reaction.
okay.
And if you understand that grief reaction, you understand what's going on to people. People don't like being cooped up. People do
Hmm.
not like being told what to do. People do not like being going through this part in their life. So they're going through the phases of Kubler-Ross at the deep. Now, the last phase of Kubler-Ross is the one of acceptance. And um, now, we're not going to accept COVID, and we're not going to accept we're dying, but we're going to accept a different way of doing things. And we're
Hmm.
going to accept a better way of doing things if we're smart. We're going to go to a new normal. We're going to go to a new level. And this could really be good for mankind because, some of the things we've done as mankind have not been so good. Uh, I've been to Los Angeles many times, and I love Los Angeles. I love the people of it. I love that area. But, unfortunately, because people being people, some bad things have come out because of the way we do things. And
Hmm.
one of the things that we've had way too much of is cars and more and
Mm, yes.
pollution.
Yes.
When I was in California many times, you had this gray haze that's uh,
Los Angeles
sat
smog. Los
sat
Angeles
over
smog.
the city of
Yes.
angels,
Yes.
and it just, but one of the beautiful things that happened in COVID is the smog went away until
Hmm.
you got your forest fires.
Yes.
And the smog was gone. The cars were parked and
Hmm.
the freeways were empty. So the thing is, we do have a better way to deal. COVID was bad, but it also helped us in ways we couldn't imagine. One of the things is it's powering green energy more.
Yes.
So
Beautiful.
now we might have cleaner air, and
Yes.
maybe COVID maybe we'll get, as a byproduct, this a new enlightenment of mankind, a new way of doing things that we wouldn't do. And I think part of my message in my book is that, I have a chapter in my book on how to deal with fear.
Mm.
And fear is one of the things that's crippling mankind right now. Now, I wrote that because of the fear that I was experiencing during COVID. And, we really have nothing to fear but fear itself. We
Hmm.
really have nothing to fear but that. And, fear and courage comes out when we have fear. That's the only
Yes.
time we can have courage. Now, courage is not the absence of fear. In fact, courage comes out despite fear.
Yes.
It's what powers us to act. And how do you act when you're really afraid? Well, you really realize that fear is an eponym. And Jack Canfield taught me it stands for false expectations appearing
Appearing.
real. And 95% of what we fear are false.
Yes.
That they're just not there. They're like ghosts and demons.
Yeah. You look
So
down
so
later, like, why was I worried about that? That turned out to be nothing.
and so that's the same thing with COVID. COVID is one of those things we have to understand and we have to deal with, and we have to wear masks and we have to wash our hands. And yes, we have to be a little bit more distance from people. 6 meters is what people recommend,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that's good. Maybe
Yeah.
that's good
For the moment, for the moment. Yeah,
for the moment.
speaking to the fear and the green energy and the COVID-19, I read a report the other day that businesses are now adopting new models because in the past they had a fear if they let their employees work from home, the employees wouldn't be as productive. But now that they're forced to do it, they see that,
Well, this thing about Zoom has really increased our productivity by
yes,
95%
yes,
because I can be in Los Angeles this morning. Then I can be in San Diego right after. Then I
yes,
can be in New York right after. So
yes,
the answer is I've been around the world. I've been in Germany. I've been in France. I've been on. So think of I don't have to get on a plane. I don't have to get, and here
in
I
your
am.
car, yeah.
Now, the downside is there's interruptions all the time. And the other downside is things change by the second.
Hmm.
We have to be adaptable. So I might have a podcast scheduled and something crisis comes up in your world, Lana, like you have to evacuate because of a forest fire or heaven forbid. So the answer is you have to be able to readjust and you have to change that meter like crazy all day long. But the human spirit is about adaptability. It really is about change. And really the only thing we have in life is change. That is the only constant we have in life.
But we
So,
fight it so much though.
and we do, but Disney taught me about change, and Disney taught me more than anything else. And we have to welcome it. We have to welcome the future. Have you ever been to Epcot Center?
Yes,
To me, Epcot is one of the most amazing places on the world. And what does it start with but the world of communications?
yes.
And you go through this amazing ride about Walter Cronkite talking about how communications evolved over a lifetime,
Hmm.
from the time of cavemen to the time we are now. And think about communications, how they evolved and how they keep on evolving. Think about the Zoom, and here you are in Los Angeles, and I'm in Edmonton talking, and how communication keeps on evolving, and how much better it is now than it's
Hmm.
ever been.
Yes.
But at the same time, our systems could crash in just a second, and then we have to reboot and go maybe from Zoom to Skype or Skype to
Yes.
StreamYard or something to get this done. But the answer is, you know, everybody that's smart has a plan A and a plan B.
Yeah.
And I'm always at a loss when I have to go through plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E at the end
All
of
the
the
way
day.
to Z, as you Canadians say, right?
That's right, you got it. But the thing is, if you're really going to deal with crises and if you're going to deal with management, if you're going to deal with this, you need to spend some time planning and looking at things and looking at how things can go wrong and then overcoming them. And one of the other things I do is I form little seminars for people. And one seminar I have is how to deal with adversity. And that's
Mm,
one little talk that I talk all the time. And it's about my story and how I overcame things and how my golden pearls can help people. Another talk I have is on crisis management. So,
okay.
two talks that I give as day long seminars, and they will be coming up mid October. I don't have them completely developed or everything yet, but if people would like to be part of that, I'd love them to be part of that too, so that I can help them. Now, these are free talks to help people through these times of crisis, but I do charge $97 if they want to have access to the recordings of those talks,
Okay.
because a lot of people to pay for the shipping and everything else with them having them all on one site, it costs a little bit of money to host them. So
Yes.
a lot of people take advantage of that, and then they
Awesome.
have that forever. And then at the end of the day, they have a plan for dealing with this too. They
Yes.
have this crisis management to deal with, and then it's easier to deal with when you deal with a day long of discussing things and
Yes.
figuring out how to do things. And also this talk on dealing with adversity. Adversity is a big word. It's certainly, and for many people it's a 4-letter word. They don't want to
Yes.
they don't want to grasp it. So again,
Yes.
I put some tools together to help people with that. And so if anybody would like to find out about, get in touch with me,
Oh,
drallenlycka.com. That's DRALLEN, Lycka, LYCKA.com. And I'll be glad to help you with that too. My girl will be able to do that.
great, great. Now you talked about adversity, and there's another topic that you talk about that I think they kind of coexist together. And you talk about turning points. We have turning
Ah,
points in our life.
yes. Turning points are some of the biggest things that we have. You know, no one likes turning points. No one likes events that cause us to change. But events like turning points are something that we have to deal with and grasp with. Have you ever had an event where your life changed in just seconds, Lana?
Yes, indeed.
Well, unfortunately, many people have. Now, those are the turning points I refer to, that you're going one direction and you have to turn 180 degrees to be
Hmm.
in the other direction after that. Now, my life changed with my turning point of of walking in Disneyland, of all
Hmm.
places, the happiest
The
place on
happiest
earth.
place in the world.
And I developed a foot drop. Now,
Mm.
oh my God, the gods must have been crazy that day because they gave me a turning point. I was in the happiest place on earth and I wasn't so happy anymore.
Yes.
Now, this is what the points of dealing with it and how we deal with it and how we grasp it and how we do that. And that's another topic I always love to talk about, how people get grounded in that. Because, you know, it's too late to deal with the turning point unless you have a plan. Now,
Yes.
I'm going to give you an example of that. I was once in SeaWorld, and SeaWorld used to be owned by Beiersdorf. And
Hmm.
the Beiersdorf used to have this wonderful wagon with these big Clydesdales horses. You know the ones I'm talking about. These are magnificent animals. They
Huge
are the
animals.
most
Yes.
beautiful horses that you're ever going to see. They stand 18 hands tall. Do you know how big that is,
That's
Lana?
that's a big horse.
That's 6 feet tall. So almost everybody looks up to a horse like that.
Hmm.
Now, this horse was being put on parade, and there was a bunch of people around that parade and standing there, and something spooked the horses. you know Now this is going to be a disaster, land.
Hmm.
These horses are big. They weigh 2,000 pounds each. If they plow into that crowd of people, there's going to be thousands of people hurt or dead
Hmm.
as a result of it. Now the driver did something amazing. All He was a little guy. The driver is called the whip, by the way.
Hmm.
Now, he didn't take out a whip. He just stood up and he pulled back on the reins with all his might, and the horses stopped right in their tracks.
Awesome.
Now, afterwards, I asked him how he did that, how he knew that. He said, Dr. Lycka, he said, it was easy. What else was I going to do? If I didn't act right then, uh, there would have been a disaster.
Hmm.
But he said, there's something about me that you don't know. And I said, what's that? He said, we train for this all the time. We
Oh.
develop a plan. A large part of what we do when working with horses, we have to control them. So we develop a plan. And that's the most amazing thing. Now, have you ever watched the movie Miracle on the Hudson with Captain Sully Sullenberg? He's the guy, it was played by Tom Hanks.
Okay.
And in that movie, Captain Sullenberg took off from the airport LaGuardia, New York, and 90 seconds later, he ran into engine problems. His plane, literally, both engines went out, the right engine and the left engine,
Okay.
90 seconds into his flight. Now, he didn't have time to say what went wrong. He didn't have time.
Yeah.
He had to do something. Well, he had three options. One was to land back in LaGuardia. That's what air traffic control did. Go back to LaGuardia. He had 90 seconds to land that plane. He wasn't going back to LaGuardia. He had no engines. Uh, his other option was to go to New Jersey, which is just across the river. Uh, and he thought about that. But he said, where is LaGuardia? He asked, and they said, oh, it's across the Hudson. Oh, the Hudson, you say? What's that? He said, oh, that's a river between New Jersey and New York. And he said, I'm going to land it there. And the air traffic said, no, don't do that. Because if you go on the Hudson, the plane is going to roll and all these people are going to die. See, a pilot is always taught never to do a water landing because
Yeah.
it's a dangerous thing. But, Sully knew something that no one else knew. He knew that you could land a plane anywhere because not only was he a pilot, he also flew in Vietnam. He also was a glider pilot.
Ah.
So he knew you could land a plane without engines. He said, that's nothing. All you have to do is put up the rudders and lift up the nose of the plane. So, Sully radioed air traffic control and said, I'm landing on the Hudson, clear the waterway. And of course, there's no one on the waterway compared to the middle of New York. If he plowed into New York, thousands of people would be dead. If he tried to go to New Jersey. So he just literally did what he knew in his heart of hearts. And how did he know that? Because of training and
Training.
planning. Okay.
Okay.
Now, his training and planning was in a very tough school. It was in the school of hard knocks. He learned this from everything else that he did. It wasn't from being a pilot. It wasn't from pilot school. It was from all those other things he did. And one of the things, if you ever hear Sully speak on, is he says you must get an education every place else that you can. Never
Awesome.
stop learning. Never ever stop talking to
Awesome.
people. Never ever stop doing. And I think that's the secret. One of the secrets of life is learn every place you can. Develop your plans. Do things in such a way, but don't be afraid of them. Don't
That's
be
great.
petrified by them. Learn, adapt, do the things you need to, but you will have a better life. You will have a fantastic life. You will have the golden pearls of life if you follow some of the guidelines that I'm talking about today.
Great, great, great tips. I think that's the beauty. You mentioned that the beauty of becoming your best self is breaking out of your comfort zones and learning new things all the time, constantly, constantly growing. But a lot of times I see people, they get stuck in this rut. I eat a hamburger every Tuesday. I'm going to continue to eat a hamburger every Tuesday from the same place. But you don't understand there's beauty if you try spaghetti on Tuesday instead of the
Well,
hamburger.
Lana, I love hamburgers, and they are. Me and Warren Buffett love those. One of our common things is we love. I'm not rich like Warren Buffett, but I'm rich in knowledge like Warren Buffett, and
Uh-huh.
one of the things we love is hamburgers. And you never understand a hamburger until you learn to cook a hamburger. And hamburgers are wonderful things. I mean, you can eat a hamburger without getting the special sauce on your skin, and you can eat a hamburger without making a mess, and you can there's all sorts of wonderful hamburgers, and they can have tomatoes, or they can have onions, or they can have special sauce, or they could have not have special sauce. They can have steak sauce. They could have everything. So you know, the thing about these things is also realizing that hamburger's great spaghetti too, and hamburger's great in all sorts of dishes, and tacos are
Mhm.
great
Yes.
as well. And expand your horizons a bit,
Yes,
get to
indeed.
know a little bit more, and that again is part of the secrets that people know about is
Good.
is expanding those horizons, knowing those. And I hope one of the things we've been able to do for your audience today is expand their horizons about and get outside of that comfort zone, know about things a bit. And I run my own podcast called the Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life podcast, which I'd love to have you on, by the way, that will help other people expand those horizons and get outside those horizons a bit and get out of their comfort zone. And we're just going to be launching it in a couple of weeks. We have
Oh,
over
okay.
40 in reserve right now, but we want this when it comes out to be a big splash, not a little splash.
Awesome.
So that'll be coming out in the next little while. So again, we'd love you to be part of that. We'd love to
Okay.
help your audience to understand things in different ways and live this beautiful life that you have. Know that how beautiful it is. Know all the beautiful things in it that can be done and live every day to the fullest. And I'm going to challenge your audience today to do something. And I want them to go do something for their neighbor that they would not
Love.
regularly do. I'm going to ask them to maybe go out and mow their neighbor's lawn, or maybe give them a dozen cookies that they bake themselves, or maybe when they're in the coffee store, they buy the coffee for somebody behind them
Hmm.
and do it anonymously so that they'll be overjoyed and
Oh, pay it
overwhelmed, and
forward.
maybe
Yes.
they'll pay it forward. Or maybe you've got some extra clothes in your closet that you're not wearing anymore, and you get those clothes all together and give them to one of the beautiful, wonderful groups of people in your city that disperse those clothes to somebody who doesn't have them, because
Splendid.
that will make the world a better place. That
Splendid.
will be the light driving out the darkness and the love
Splendid.
driving out the hate. And that's how you're going to make this world a better place today. That's how you're going to make this little planet that we have a little bit better. And that's how you're going to in a regular way get outside your bubble, get outside your comfort zone, and do something that's positive. You know, every time I go to the grocery store, I buy an extra buy a bag of groceries for somebody who doesn't have them. You know, it costs $5 or $10, but
Yeah.
whoopee. Think about it on how much you might be feeding somebody that's hungry today. And one thing about COVID is there's over a third of your city that doesn't have enough to eat today.
We were already struggling with homelessness and people not being able to find places to or having enough food to eat. So Los Angeles was already hit hard before COVID-19 happened. So this I think COVID-19 has brought out this need to refocus on we are human beings on this planet and we cannot coexist without helping each other, looking out for
Well,
each
in
other.
Edmonton, we have a food bank, and the food bank is big. And I know you have various food banks in Los Angeles, so contribute to them. But
Hmm.
another thing, you know, elderly are locked in their homes;
Yes.
they can't do anything. And in Edmonton, we have a service called
Me-
Meals on
Meals on
Wheels,
Wheels. Yes.
and I think almost every city does in the world. So volunteering your time to put some of those meals together could help somebody. So if you have a little extra time, well, use it in a positive way that way. So these are just some examples. These are just some of the things people can do on a daily basis to make this planet a little bit better and help people along the way and do some things for people that you wouldn't regularly. So there's the Lana Reid challenge today for people. Let them reach out and do something that they wouldn't regularly do.
Awesome. Well, I have taken up enough of your time for today. I want to talk to you some more and longer, but I need to get you on your
Well, you know,
way.
I'd be delighted to be on your show again. We've just
Awesome.
scratched the surface. We've got 14 golden pearls to go through. We've got
Wow.
a lot more to go through. We've got another book that Harriet and I are writing right now that's going to be out in a little while. You know, it's not hard to write a book. All you have to do is slit your wrists and bleed blood. So that's the thing about writing a book is you got to really put your soul in it. You
Yes,
got to
it's a
allow
piece of
yourself
you.
to be vulnerable. And one thing as males we have a hard time doing is being vulnerable because we are those control freaks that like to control everything in our lives and
In,
everything like that. So that's the secret of writing a book is being vulnerable and allowing that vulnerability to come out and allowing people to share parts of your soul in such a way that you would never have. So if somebody wants to touch my soul, learn a little bit about my soul, read my book, The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life. There's some real good soul food from Harriet, Tinka, and myself in there, and where we touch on people's souls. And Harriet's a very special person. She was a person that was affected by domestic violence in
mm,
such a way that she almost died. She was kidnapped, stabbed, and left for dead. So a very traumatic event, but a very beautiful thing that came out as
that
she
came
helps
out of it.
others. So I don't want people to concentrate on the ALS that I was misdiagnosed of. I don't want people to concentrate on the tough things that I went through. I want people to realize it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens. Those are the words of a wonderful sophist, a Greek sophist by the name of Epictetus, who
Hmm.
existed about 2,000 years ago. So that Greek wisdom is here and living in my book. Remember, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens. And the concentration is on you there. It's not on
That's right.
me.
Yeah.
It's not on I, it's on you. And you got to do something with it.
That's right. That's right. Because a lot of times we have these situations, adversity hits in our life, which it's supposed to, we're expected. But sometimes some of us do the sit in the corner, rocking back and forth, woe is me, and instead of working the plan, taking proactive steps.
And
And
that's one of the other books that I've co-written. It's called The Ultimate Success Secret that I
okay.
wrote with Dan Kennedy back in 2005. I've just stumbled across it. It was on my shelf. Now, this Ultimate Success Secret is actually the thing that Nike wrote about, and it's do it. It's
Hmm.
action overcomes adversity.
That's right.
Action overcomes everything. Now, you have to act in the right way. You have to use that in a planned way. You have to use that in a guided way. But if you take action, you will take the path that's going to do so much more. So
Hmm.
I'm going to ask your audience to think about what actions they can take today, what
Great,
positive
great.
steps they can take today, what little things they can do today to make this planet better, because everybody has that inside of them. You know, Mahatma Gandhi, again, uh, was asked by a lowly street sweeper, you know, Mahatma, I do not like being a street sweeper. What do I do? And Mahatma says, be the best street sweeper you can. Just do it the best way you know how. That way you'll make the world a better place. Now think about that, Lana. You are a podcaster. You are a person that influences. I challenge you to be the best podcaster you can and take this message and even make it bigger. Let everybody come out there and love it and be part of it. You know, I was a doctor, but now I'm in the service of mankind in different ways. So I want people to live the best life they can.
Great. Awesome. Awesome. I love it, Dr. Lycka. Now I'm going to ask you my random question, and then I want you to, after we do that, I want you to once again give my audience the phone number for the Golden Pearls and then how they pick up the book and all that stuff. But we're going to do totally random.
Perfect. I love random.
So let's see what we've got here. Yeah. What is the worst thing about being male?
You know, I don't think there's anything bad about being male, just like I don't think there's anything bad about being female. Again, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens. And I
Awesome.
think men, I think the hardest thing is men are going through a time when they don't know what to do anymore. You know, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in male worlds right now.
Yes.
You know, we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be the guy on the white horse. We're supposed to be the guy that never cries. We're supposed to be the guy that leads the battles. We're supposed to be the guy that never has any emotions. We're supposed to be the guy that does everything in such a way that we are leaders all the time. Now, I encourage people that are male to be leaders. I encourage people, but to do it in ways that are kind and loving and ways that people are different than the male of yesteryear. Now, my father used to be a strong, silent type. He never used to communicate very well. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at my heart of hearts, I'm an introvert. I don't like being extrovert. You find that hard to believe when I'm on a show like this, but I've learned I can put on my extroverted face and become the person that I wanted to be rather than the person that my inside loves to share and keep to myself. So I think the difficult thing about being a male is allowing a male to be vulnerable. I think males do not have that as a natural set of variables inside themselves. I think from the time we were little kids, we were taught never to be vulnerable. We're
Mm-hmm.
taught never to cry. You know, when we fall down on the playground, we're taught never to allow that to happen. Now, those are good things. Okay. Uh, my little grandson, when he falls down, he cries for a minute, but then he's off to the next thing, jumping on all sorts of things and doing it.
Yes. Moving on to the next challenge.
I think you need that joy de vivre. I think,
Yes.
and I'm going to tell a little story so you understand. You know, in Canada, it's cold here, very cold in winter. In fact, it's so cold we have to bundle up with 7 layers of clothes, scarves around our face. It's not very. It often gets down in Edmonton to -40. So I went over to my daughter's place and she said, you know, you need to take Zach out today because he hasn't been out all day and he's got too much energy. So she bundled him up. It took over a half an hour and we got outside and it was cold. It was cold. And Zach looked up at the sky and said, Grandpa, look. And I said, what are we looking at? He said, look, there's diamonds in the sky. It was so cold, there were ice crystals in the sky, and the sun was glistening on them,
Oh.
and they had formed. And then he said, look again. There was a rainbow in the sky. It
Oh.
often gets so cold, those ice crystals form something called sun dogs, and they are all beautiful colors. So it was Zachary that opened my eyes to the beauty in minus 40-degree temperatures. It's not something that you in Los Angeles would find
No,
beautiful,
no, 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 no,
but
no.
it's an experience that when I go to real expensive spas in the world, they often have a room that's full of that minus cold temperature just to give you a new experience. So if you ever want to have
No.
an experience that takes your breath away, I mean, really takes your breath away, come to Edmonton on a cold day, and we'll show you something delightful. Have you
No,
ever heard?
June and July is when I will visit you guys as soon as you open
Well,
the borders back up for us.
you have you ever heard of the aurora borealis?
Yes.
Well, they're available in January, February, and March.
Oh,
And they
wow.
are some of the most beautiful lights that occur in the skies that you're ever going to see. So I would suggest that you book a vacation sometime, just something that's amazing. Go up to either Alaska or Edmonton or something where there's no lights, and you will see these most amazing things
Oh,
because they really take your breath away, and something that you need to do. So part of being a male, I think we don't have that sense of wonder anymore. We often are
okay.
too busy doing than to really experience. And I encourage people to experience more.
Good deal. Good deal. Alrighty, Dr. Lycka, please, please, once again, tell people how they pick up the Tuesday Golden Pearls and then how we can get the book and how we can connect with you for
Sure.
speaking and
Let
all
me
of
do
that.
that for you because again, in a show like this, we can only give you a taste of all the wisdom and knowledge that I have. So I'd love to share more with you. And the phone number is that you text me and you text the words golden pearls, golden pearls, two words, second word with an S, 1-819-717-2515. Now I'll say that again, 1-819-717-2515. And anybody who texts that will randomly be drawn for a copy of my book, and I'll send that to you and I'll autograph that for you. So you'll have that. And I'll even get my co-author, Harriet, to autograph that for you as well. If you can, when you do this, send us your name so I can do and personalize that for you so you get that. If you'd like to know more about me, I'm Dr. That's Dr. Allen, Allen, Lycka, Lycka.com. And if you'd like to take advantage of two of those courses I have, crisis management and the other one is dealing with adversity. All you have to do is go to my website. My girl will help you there, and she's the eighth wonder of the world, and just communicate with her. Her email directly, by the way, is assistant@lycka.ca. Now remember, it's
Awesome.
CA, not .com.
Canada. Canada.
Canada, because we like to do things the same but differently.
Yes.
We're the kinder, gentler nation that your George Bush Sr. once talked about. We already exist, so
Hmm.
kinder and gentler. And after this border's down, I encourage some of you to check us out because maybe it's a time that we can get some of these relations going together. I trained in Minneapolis. That's where I took my dermatology degree, and so I know a lot about the states. I've traveled the states probably 2,000 times. And before all this, I was in the States every month. I've been in, San Diego is a beautiful city. I've been there many times. Los Angeles, I've been there many times. If you ever want me in person on your show, Lana, once these borders are down and this COVID is a little further down the thing, I think I'd love to come down and we could
Awesome.
communicate in a better way that will help
Then
people
this, the
even
technology.
more
Awesome.
instead of this modality
Technology.
called Zoom. It's somewhat arbitrary, and people are getting zoomed out these
I
days.
know they're overload. Everybody's just talking about Zoom exhaustion. Who would have ever thought? But once again, that's that COVID-19. Well, Dr. Allen, like I really, man, I could talk to you probably all day. I've enjoyed myself so much.
Well,
I
maybe
thank you
we
for
can do that sometime. Maybe we
no,
can really spend a day with Dr. Lycka and Lana, and maybe we can help others that way. And then we'll
awesome.
have maybe 5 or 6 topics, maybe some of those pearls that we talked about.
That's great.
My
That's
I've
great.
got 14 golden pearls. One is love, And that is a very important golden pearl that I think we don't spend enough time on. And the Greeks actually called 7 types of love, believe it or not.
Hmm.
So we could spend a whole day on love, believe it or not.
Yes.
But at the end of my pearls, we start with love and we end with empowerment, because everybody needs to be empowered in this day. And along the way, we have non-negotiables, we have forgiveness, and we have attitude. The hardest thing, the only thing more contagious than a good attitude is a bad attitude.
Yes.
And so we got to get beyond that bad attitude stuff.
Yes.
And if we can get beyond that bad attitude stuff, we can really make the world a better place too. So these are some of my pearls. And some people will say, well, there's nothing new there. Well, there's nothing new in any of the world. We've
Hmm.
had love and hate for thousands of years. We've had all, but they keep going on, and maybe we can approach them in different ways and make the world better that way. Maybe
Yes.
you and I together, we can lead the pack in some of this and make the
Hmm.
world just a bit of it. And maybe the city of angels will be truly the city of angels then, that
Yes,
it
indeed.
will truly be something that won't be lost angels, but angels that'll lead us in a new way.
That's right. And you said that, people, it might not be something new, but uh, there's certain teachers for certain students. So even though it
Yeah,
might not be
I don't know who said it, but they said when the student is ready, the
the teacher
teacher
will
will
come.
come. And that is a beautiful expression. And maybe
Hmm.
I can help some people along their way with their little difficulties they're having now. Because
I love it.
I emphasize they're little, because although they seem insurmountable, it's not what happens to you. It's what you do
You,
with what happens. And
awesome.
everybody has this awesome power inside themselves to overcome every one of their difficulties and become even better as a result of it. It's the difficulties that make us better. And we shouldn't really underestimate the power of difficulties. It's the struggles we go through that make it
It
better.
teaches you who you are. It teaches you what
Diamonds
you,
come about because of
yes.
struggle, because of fire, because of pressure. They come
Hmm.
about when carbon is made into a diamond. And golden pearls come about because trauma to an oyster.
Yes, irritation. Awesome. Well, I've enjoyed you. We'll have to do this again. We'll have to connect, but we're going to reconnect again. I know that for sure. I want to thank you for making time for me today. I know I have taken up way more than I should have. I apologize, but
Well,
thank you.
Lana, there's no apologies. If we can help one person with what we've done today, you and I have overdone our goal. We've done more than what our goal was. And I think we'll help thousands with that task. I think more people will be able to have a better day, and will
Hmm.
be able to do that. And remember, I challenged them to make that day better.
Awesome.
Remember, I challenged them to get that day by making it special. And how did they do that? By paying it forward, by doing
That's right.
something for their neighbor that they wouldn't regularly do.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for giving me your time today. And I wish you on your way to a beautiful day, a beautiful week, a beautiful month, a beautiful coming out of COVID-19 journey transition and all of that.
Well, if you were with me today, you'll see that the colors are already starting to change in the Edmonton area. We are getting beautiful leaves. We are getting beautiful things there. It's a little chilly, as I said, but the colors are coming out.
Uh-huh.
You know, this is one of my favorite seasons. It doesn't last long, because right around that way is that stuff that Alberta's known for, the Great White North.
Uh-huh.
We will have the Great White, but even
Whew.
that has its own beauty. Even
Mhm.
that has its own wonderfulness. But we must spend the days looking at the diamonds in the sky and looking at the beauty that's there. And if we don't, then we're cheating ourselves if we don't do those things. So again, something every must was do today is spend a little bit of time looking at the beauty that's around them.
Being grateful for the beauty around you. Awesome.
Another one of my golden pearls.
Gratitude. I say every time I make it to the grocery store and back home, as soon as I walk in the door, thank you, because I didn't have to make it back home. So I'm just grateful for the little things and the big things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lana. It's been my pleasure. If I can be of any service to anybody in your world out there, please let me know. And
Awesome.
sign up for those golden pearls
I
yourself,
will.
because
I
I,
will.
I think you'll love one every Tuesday delivered to you.
I will. I surely will. That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and we will see you all next time.